I'm gonna do that next time. Set the intro. Yeah, greetings and welcome to Context Matters. The date is October 24. It's a Thursday, and you are tuned into Reggae Global Radio. Context Matters through the YouTube channel as well as TikTok. Big up yourself if you're joining me on TikTok. Big up yourself if you're joining me from the respective places. I didn't advertise, so I don't expect a lot of people to be here. Blessings in a young son. Dorothy Mason, good evening. Yeah, please press that button. Please subscribe, share where necessary. And as I said, today my choice of topic is what plagues Jamaica all the time, and that's the crime. Jamaica is a high crime society. That is simply just the reality. I don't make the rules. I just have to deal with it as it comes. But what I do notice is that in terms of conversations, there is it's really honestly a lot going on in the space. My decision to literally choose this topic is what happened in Rockfort this week. And I'm not saying that murders don't take place all the time in Jamaica or all the time other places in the world, but it is they say people, when things happen, when people start to imitate conduct that goes around, you have to wonder what is really going on. There was a time when you were counting the murder rate, it was one person die here, probably two persons. I know there's this constant appetite for people to try to up the game. So there is now what is officially mass shootings in Jamaica, and it should be cause for concern that that the possibility that mass shootings is a real thing. That's what we are talking about today. And yeah, Nigel said politician helps to, I guess, enhance crime. I didn't really see it, but that's pretty much that's not my thinking. What I think is Jamaica is a high crime society. That is where 100 murders or more than 30 murders or 38 murders per 100,000 is said to leave you in the category of what a high crime society is. I think I would have defined what a high crime society is on many different occasions. So in my mind, it's just for edification why I would even bring it up again. But here's what it is: any society where the government cannot control the crime, and when I say control crime, statistics don't mean nothing in this reality. There's this constant um, belief that when you start to throw around statistics and throw around the numbers, um, say crime is down in the last 10 years, we're doing better than what it was in the last 10 years. Listen, death is death. Every life is something given to us without knowing we are to receive it. Every single life, when it's lost, it matters. So in my mind, when one person dies, it's sufficient enough for us to be concerned. So to say that, even it is, I guess one can argue that it is a success when you're able to save even one life. Um, there's nothing to complain about. But in the context that the murder rate is high, and it's almost as if when the government um touts the decreasing in the murder rate, that persons should celebrate. The reality of it is that crime is not under control, and crime is evolving in such a way that when you have a prime minister that is saying meet your judge or meet your maker, it's a signal, just in society general, that the value of life, certainly the value of a Jamaican life, is of quoting Vinette Graver, no regard for life, no fear of God. Yes. So when somebody says that, it is problematic when our leaders have no problem telling you that um, even law enforcement have no problem murdering you. So there is no true answer to the crime problem. Save and accept to start by saying we have to admit that um, crime is not something that the government is handling. Crime is not something that we as a society are doing enough to curb crime. I could start by even saying that when one thinks about, and this is realistic, when one starts to think about the issue of the murder rate, when one thinks about what is being done to fight crime, we have to just be realistic that um, it's not something that is handling. We think and understand before you write. Keisha, sometimes you have to just ignore them. So context matters is a space where we are trying to educate each other, trying to get people to come into the knowledge and the reality of whatever it is that's happening in society and what we can do, how we can come together to make things better. There are responsibilities that I think that the citizen has in relation to ensuring that they certainly do their part to have a safer society. We can all agree that the JCF cannot do it alone. I'm of the firm view that the JCF is not your enemy. JCF are also citizens when they're not in their uniform, and we can talk more about that in terms about police is always on duty and all of these things. But our ministry says the crime gonna implement certain things we do not like surveillance, camera everywhere. Okay, y'all keep up the crime and lose y'all privacy. Well, I don't think that the privacy is there right now, to be honest with you. But certainly, when you go into the United Kingdom, stoplights are everywhere. Speeding, for instance, is self-regulated. We don't have that here, so people are using motor vehicles. There are people die more from motor vehicles than murders, but it's just the act of another human being taking another human life that is problematic. It doesn't sit well in any society, and that's the aspect of it that we have to talk about. So as you can see, the picture behind me it is a moment to reflect. It is an embarrassing moment when one thinks about the law, when one thinks about the murder rate, when one thinks about that people don't have no problem taking a human life. Once you are experiencing that reality, or once you are faced with that, then when you hear me make the statement that the government is failing at crime, that is a reality. But is it the government's sole responsibility to curb crime? That's an answer that only the citizens can. That's an answer that only the citizen is in a position to respond to, or to say yes or no. Um, when we really sit down and try to assess it, we have to do it by the examples as we see it, because every society is going to function differently. So I start by a disclaimer to say that our media has a responsibility as to how they disseminate information. Not a criticism on the Press Association of Jamaica and local media, because social media has so somebody says no, exactly, Ellen Turner. You answer the question. It takes a village. So just like how it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to stop crime. So social intervention programs, which were discontinued by the current minister of security, or national security, or whatever that ministry is one of the reasons why we're in the situation that we are in now. For instance, states of emergencies was a complete failure in the in the Jamaican pursuit of fighting crime. It in fact caused crime to spread across. Yeah, so there is consensus. There is the somebody says government alone can't fight crime. Exactly, it is the citizen. Just like how government can't be in power unless a citizen vote. When voter turnout is less than 30%, the citizens are not participating. So just like how you fail to participate and then you allow one government to wreck the entire country so much so that the dollar is 160 basically, $159.85, 15 cents short of being 160. What is the result or the reality of that? Well, the whole way I got suffer when the dollar is like that. This reality is what we are faced with, and this reality is how we have to kind of position ourselves to try to understand, if that is the correct word, to try to come to terms with what our realities are. And why is this, in my mind, why is this important? Well, um, it cannot be that you wake up in the morning and you do the things that should come naturally. So this conversation, although we're talking about crime, there's a lot to explain. Do I have the time sufficient to explain it? I could be talking for hours and hours and hours, and it would never be enough time. So let's start with Maslow's laws of hierarchy. At the tip of the iceberg, as in the top of the pyramid, persons are self-actualized. To become self-actualized is the ultimate goal of the human being in his or her existence. It is a spiritual plane and a spiritual greatness that very few men will ever attain in life. No, I start there because if we are heading there, some people will never even know what that is, what it look like, or even on the journey to attain that. Majority of the people in the world never transcend what's known as the physiological needs, physical needs: food, clothes, shelter, um, because because you're not in a position to transcend the basic needs. Like for instance, if you're existing and you have to go to the shop in the morning and say, Miss Nancy, sell me a squeeze of toothpaste, you're living in abject poverty. If you need to get a piece of a soap to bathe, or a spray off of a cologne, or a little bit of deodorant, and mind you, it is positive that you're taking steps to deal with your hygiene. But what of the reality that it's a little bit more than that has to take place? One has to be very concerned that persons aren't transcending the physiological or the physical needs. So if the people are living in abject poverty, and I've said this all the time, it used to be 500,000. I used to be proud to say, if you're not making $500,000, you're not on the human index. But the dollar is 160. So it's no wonder why you have to be making $600,000 a month to be considered a human being. Basic needs, So if you're in a first world country and you know how to make no money, you're still better off than the working class in a third world country who is not making or meeting the basic requirements. Because when you get your pay, you have to pay a light bill, you have to pay a water bill, you have to pay your taxes, you have to buy your food, you have to pay your transport, you have to pay for the even basic niceties where you treat yourself from time to time. These are just basic things that are supposed to happen whether or not you're happy or whether or not you're sad. The world is going to go on and you're going to have these responsibilities that come from it. So yesterday I was in court and there was a bail application being made And the man says he has 5 kids from 19 going back to about the age of 3, and he is a vendor. And his eldest daughter, who is 19, she's a nurse. The judge's response was, "So tell me, you are taking care of all 5 kids by being a vendor, as in selling at a stall, not even one of them vendors like you have a stall, a Carnation Market, and you have a taxi on the road and you do your thing and you hustle. No, you have a stall where you sell bun and cheese and this, and you're saying you're taking care of yourself, 5 kids, and putting a daughter through nursing school." And no, one thing about Jamaicans, they're very resilient, especially Jamaican women. They can feed a whole family off a $1,000 and then make that work for the whole week. I don't ask me how, but they make it happen. Um, but realistically, when you hear stuff like that, and remember it's 600,000 per person, so 6 5s 30, you need $3 million a month. I hope I said that right, because we're not too good on the maths, but 6 5 30, $3 million a month in that household it will require. But it's really 3,600,000 because it's six people that's working. Good. Now, why is this important? Naturally, if you're before the court with 5 mouths to feed and they said that you're charged for robbing and firearm offenses and all of that, naturally a judge with her jury mind or her judge mind is going to say, "I'm not going to give you bail. I'm not going to give you bail because it's likely that you might have committed the crime, because how are you going to feed? Are you going to feed 5 kids and yourself and a woman, 7 people off of one stall? Let's be for real." That's the thought process. So we know that when it comes to poverty, it is the poverty is the criminal in all of this. So that when one assesses our reality, and we start to realize that who is responsible for keeping the people poor. So if you're in a constituency and you are poor, you have to ask yourself, is the MP responsible for you being poor? Because if all they have to offer you is the things that they are required to do, for instance, good road and water, back to Maslow's laws of hierarchy, basic necessities that are supposed to be given to you as a human being. You're supposed to have a roof over your head. You're supposed to be able to have clean clothes and shelter and shoes, clothes on your back, food to eat, and even proper health care, right? This is so important. Somebody's telling me about the fish and the loaves. That's the Jesus method of feeding the 5,000 and sometimes the 10,000s. But we all know Jesus was his disciples were fishermen, so they obviously were getting the catch of the day, and Jesus and his miracles. Point is, we can't be in a situation where somebody have to come and feed us. One of the things is, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime, because what we have is situations where the people who are in power, as soon as them dead, everything falls apart, or as soon as something happened to them, because they're not teaching succession. So, because succession is important, because learning, educating, eradicating poverty should be the mission in life. And if Jamaica's vision is to eradicate poverty for the 3.5 million, reducing now because they're killing 5 6 people a day, and because the birth rate is low, because young people have realized that they're not going to create the mouths to feed. So a woman's going to says that she careless because she have 6 kids and can't feed them. And then that's what certainly the vavavoons of society says about the women who have multiple kids, and the youth them that have the kids and don't take care of them. And lo and behold, that was said about 4 years ago, pre-COVID. Now we're post-COVID, and you're hearing people say, "Oh, okay, we don't have to have more kids because the birth rate is low, and at this rate, we won't have nobody." Yeah, you see, we're still stuck at Maslow's laws of hierarchy and the basic necessities. the vicissitudes of life don't come yet. So there we have not transcended the basic needs. So when it start coming to socialization and finding communication and all of that, we don't get to that. So we're living in abject poverty and this animalistic behavior, and the survival skills is always on. Unique Query says, Mr. Isaac, question, what do you think of putting this in place? Any MP responsible for any constituency must live in the community to seek, to see, know all what their citizens going through. Well, my response to that, and I must tell you, I moved to Portland, so I know that you have to be there to know what's going on. To know what's going on there. So I agree that you have to move there and you have to know what it is. But the reality of it is this. There are communities that the very basis of this conversation is that the communities that you're saying that the politicians should live in should not exist. So I wouldn't want somebody to tell me, "Hey, go and live in an area where they don't have running water, and live where they don't have tiles on the floor, and the roof is leaking." That can't be right. We're trying to say that it is Operation Eradicate Poverty, because poverty is the real criminal. The people who allow poverty to exist are the people who are aiding and abetting poverty. They are criminals who are assisting persons to suffer, and that is what should be eradicated. So it is nothing, because your politicians, they are your servants. People with professions are actually in the business of service, professional service. So make no mistake, your politician don't have to come and live in the ghetto or live in the roadless spaces to know that they must provide roads. That's why they were elected. And I maintain that when somebody fix a road, the people in the community aren't supposed to be grateful. They're supposed to say, "Idiot, give me the receipt," and go find something else and do. And it includes bridges, and it includes structural development that must take place regardless of which government is in power. It is not something to be rewarded and lauded that you're doing something constructive, because when you're doing that and people are suffering and experiencing hardship, you're failing at governance. And when you do that, somebody's going to get up, and there is a syndrome, you see. It's called the F it syndrome, where people say, "F it. I gotta do what I have to do." And then in Jamaica, them say anything or anything, if a dirt, a dirt. Um, and Sisodia say, if me think you for runway. No, so that is the thing. If you have to run away, you must ask yourself the question, why am I running away, but people from other nations are coming here and being prosperous, and they get tax exempt for a good amount of time until they can open the harbor dasheries and everything, and then they drive the Range Rovers and them come with them nice skin that needs sunblock to survive in Jamaica. You have to be realistic about these things. And so, what this conversation is about, finding a space in society for the people who are discarded, the people who are my people, the people who I cannot say I'm not you. So when the uptown people say, "Ghetto you, dirty Rasta boy," it's me them talking about. And if you are happy about that, then you are happy that they are disrespecting you, because when they disrespect me, they disrespect you. No one can deny me that. So I don't have to go as far as say my mother born ya, my father born ya. That's a given. Notwithstanding that all of us here and there we mix up. That's why some of us know they're all the way dark skin, because we have other races. So out of many, one is very relevant. What we have to do is to eliminate a class system that is excluding. And we must stop having the conversations and telling people that because your father is a farmer, you are a farmer. Socrates, they kill him for making that, for challenging that. that we are all of the same metal, but some of us are beryllium and vibranium, and some of us are platinum and silver and gold, and some of them are just wood, some of them are just water, some of them are just macabush. Some of them don't hold no value. So stick where you are. If your father was a carpenter, you should be a carpenter. If your father rub out him hand middle, you must go rub out your hand middle and pass the tradition. When it is not so, like Damian Crawford, who teeth the people them slang and say, what could go so? That is the truth. Unacceptable. And so we find ourselves, and yes, I'm reading all the comments, I'm reading the comments and I'm making mental notes, and I'm trying to ensure that we have this conversation. We are supposed to be educating the youth, and life is a relay. That's why reproduction is important, procreation, because it's a relay. Your ancestors have put in a lot of work. Heroes Day just passed, and I laugh. I never felt so good. This is the first time I participated in a event in the capacity as a representational capacity, as I'm running as the MP candidate for Portland Eastern, and I was allowed to lay the wreath at Norman Manley's photo. And it dawned on me, because as I listen to the heroes, and that's why civics is so important. You see, I'm all over the place because this conversation is about crime. And it means that if it's about crime, it's about what it is that we consider to be criminal, and how does the law regulate the conduct in a free and democratic society, and whether or not persons have omitted or failed to do, have a duty to act, or their conduct has caused or is the result of what is really happening. So it's called the chain reaction, the ripple effect. And so I lay the flowers, the wreath, yeah, at the photo of Norman Washington Manley, national hero, whose cousin was also a national hero. And I thought about Isaac and Ishmael, and I thought about the war in the Middle East, and I said, there are people fighting right now over issues between two brothers. So families are fighting for generation. Just like how when I see the vitriol that comes from the Jamaica Labour Party at the People's National Party, vice versa, I say to myself, I wonder if they realize that Norman Manley and Bustamante, who are the founding fathers when it comes to Constitution, were family, cousins. Some even say half brothers. I don't know what it is, but you cannot dispute that they were family members. And so family a family legacy comes about, and divergence or differences in ideologies or opinions has left Jamaica in a state that we, because of party lines, are very discourteous to each other, and we lose, not lack, we lose empathy, and we forget how important it is to traverse this planet with compassion and love. But forget about that. When you read about Marcus Garvey, who, as it is right now, is the lone hero who sits on a money by himself. This man had formed the PPP, the People's Political Party, and he must have won a seat as a councillor, but was never successful as an MP because he did black. Not because he wasn't smarter than them, and not because his ideologies was about this very same thing I'm telling you right now, eradicating poverty and empowering black people and poor people to have a part of what at the time was a young nation. And he died with a broken heart in England, and then they brought him back to Jamaica and buried him here, and ultimately made him a national hero. But not before he was convicted in the United States and mistreated in Jamaica and called a convict and all kind of thing. And yes, you're gonna hear people after they rewatch this say you're comparing apples and oranges because where you do and where them do, but Paul Bogle was hanged for his freedom. George William Garden was doing the same thing, trying to eradicate poverty into how when Paul Bogle, born a free man, a free black man, was was on the voters list as a property owner. When there was 100 people on the voters list, he was a lone Negro on the list, and in brethren was a mulatto, George William Gordon, and he would distribute his fatherland to give other Negroes the right to vote, the very right that people feel like them say, me nah vote, cause nothing not change. There was a time when you had to be a landowner to vote. And ask yourselves while I have this conversation, how many of you have land and would have otherwise been excluded but for the sacrifices of your forefathers? Many sacrifices made. There are many sacrifices I myself have made for my people, for us, that you may not appreciate no, or for the things that would have happened now, but long after I'm gone, people will say, if this wasn't done. So a lot of times in the no, remember Marcus Garvey left. There's a time Bob Marley left, and there's a conversation now about making him a national icon. You don't have to make Bob Marley a national icon. He's a world icon. You're out of order to talk about. You would put in place a amend to give an award for national icon. This is after you flood the place with persons who are non-deserving of orders of distinction. You don't want to make a new one because you think this, because the Jamaica Labour Party have a history of disliking Rastafarian and dreadlocks. So you could never bring yourself to making him a national hero. Even though there's many other debates to say he's not deserving. But if you're going to consider to award a man that has put Jamaica on the map continuously, yeah, the only response is to make him a national hero. And then your people wonder how it is that Mark Golding have sense and others don't. But anyway, then I digress. These things are important because as this is Heroes Week, as Heroes Week has passed, and I am speaking of the heroes, and you struggle to make Miss Lou, who is the only person that make gal sound sweet. It's long time gal me never see you. Come make me hold your hand. When me say gal, everybody I gonna say me I diss up people, so I'm gonna leave that one alone. But you just have to, I just want you to appreciate the sacrifices that people make and the mistakes we make by not loving ourselves. So I'm just positing, when you reject me, Isaac Buchanan, you reject yourself. And it's understanding because we have practiced self-hate for years. But what is undeniable, you cannot deny my blackness. You cannot deny my African identity. You cannot deny my Rastafarian identity. You cannot deny that I am a roaring lion that you can't tame. You can't deny that. You can't. There's many other things I can tell you that you can't deny, but I digress. The rest speaks for itself. But yeah, Paul Bogle, convicted. George William Gordon, convicted. Sam Sharp, convicted. Yes? Marcus Garvey, convicted. Bustamante, who spoke up for the poor when it was fit to do so, convicted. So whenever there has to be change by virtue of a revolution or by something that is going to change even law, the jurisprudence, it's always going to be controversial. And controversial in your time, and if that is the road that God sent you to walk, then so be it. But what I will say to my young brothers and sisters who are struggling, it is the system that is trying to turn ordinary citizens into criminals, persons who have ambition and want the best for them life. Like, how can you be a member of the JCF, and you have the highest integrity, and your salary is so low that you find yourself writing tickets and asking that somebody can left a thing with you because you stand up in the hot sun and you are thirsty. Not defending anything, but to say that they swear a matter of situation, ethics. They put people in situations to run afoul of the law and then say that you must have the highest integrity. A teacher reached out to me and said she's a preschool teacher and they give her $15,000 every 2 weeks, which is $30,000 a month. Minus that from the $600,000 that I said that you're supposed to have. And you wonder if somebody tell her young girl, and I hear there's a MP saying that he want to put up beautiful signs in back road to make it look more like Vegas and the red light district in Amsterdam. So I know you see where I'm going with that. But you're causing people to lose their morality in the name of the dollar because they're spread thin, because they're stretched thin. And then the devil comes in and says, here's an easy way to make money. Yeah? Easier. Well, it could never be easier than how Bolt Money walk out of SSL in 9.58 seconds and never come back. Never come back for it. Never even try come back in the 200-meter race. It just disappeared. And all of the persons who would also help themselves to people's money and have not been called to answer for it. And so that's the vein of what we are dealing with. We quick to judge and we quick to call out people and selectively. So there are persons in the governing party who love to tell people to apologize. Filth come out their mouth, and somehow it is different. Rude, and somehow it is different. But I am an advocate of freedom of expression. And so we must understand that for me, what certainly I chalk up to be freedom of expression and a lack of the ability to understand literature, a lack of ability to use the English language in such a way that it generates satire, it generates comedic relief to bring across your expression, similar to that of our erudite former Justice President of the Appeal that said he would never drink from the persons who are mentally ill and need psychiatric help, and said, dare to dream if you want an apology from me. He said, that's a real man right there. So I know weak jellyback man, but him reach a place in life where when he now ask Christ and they can't do him nothing. So they prey on the young, and they're in the business of destroying the young. People in power have the Diddy mentality. But it's not everything baby oil can fix, you know? But what I really want people to understand is the power is within the people. And because we live in a high crime society, and because we do understand that when you're in a high crime society, the people have to find ways to survive. To survive as in staying alive. That kind of survival. Survival. Big up yourself, big youth. It is that kind of survival that the people are trying to ensure that you're in the race to stay alive. So if that is the case, we must know where we fall. So guess what? People are acting mentally, but if you're mentally ill, are you free to act? So the criminal law is based on the belief that we are autonomous beings, healthy human beings free to act on our own free will without any influence, undue influence, whichever one you believe it is. And this is very, very important. Listen, people on TikTok, you have to tap up the screen and share the live and give me some gifts too, you know. Not because we're not a big social media influencer that can keep a big party and these things. You must still send me the gifts. And it says somebody, poverty doesn't cause crime on its own. Omalu, poverty is crime all by itself. That's my position. No, yeah, what I think is lacking when you come across the persons who are brought before the justice system is a lack of appreciation for what they have done. There is an intersection between reality and fiction where I think that although we blame dancehall for everything bad in life, I think that movies, culture, access to globalization, the internet has caused us to live in a reality that is not of our own. So much so that Elon Musk is doing everything that I've seen iRobot, Terminator, the Jetsons. So we've gone from the Flintstones to car where you have to use your foot and push to cars that are driving, and Elon Musk is doing all of it. But I just want people to have an appreciation that they always tell you ignorance is no excuse to the law. But let me tell you something. When you have lawmakers who don't even know the law, a deso, a yes or nice. And we must, because of that, understand that no matter what it is, educating the people and empowering them, which is my mission in life, about their constitutional rights. When the rights them so turn up that they made a whole ministry to change the constitution to strip you of your rights. Cutely, demurely, classily, nicely, and state of emergency ishly, curfew ishly, and everything to prevent you from becoming independent and accessing freedom in a way that you can just get up and buy a house them like the big artists who big up for your big house and you carry them and everything, and then people really bad mind you because you work for it and you never thief nobody money. You never had to open 28 bank accounts. You never had to marry and then try to cordon off by yourself a whole parish and or make your wife to speak, or you never had to do anything all at taxpayers' expenses. You do it on your own and have your own business that cannot be questioned. The power of independence and the power and ability to not be a parasite on the people, to not prevent the people from accessing the very things that you want. That is what is problematic. So it is in that vein that I want to speak of the law in and of itself. And so we're going to go there. And I'm starting with actus reus. Actus reus in the criminal law. So the law consists of all elements of a crime other than the state of mind of the defendant. So that's the actus reus in criminal law. So in particular, actus reus may consist of conduct, result, a state of affairs, and omission. That's the three: conduct, result, state of affairs, and omission. So when we think of conduct, we're talking about the conduct itself. And the conduct itself might be criminal. Example, the conduct of lying on the oath. And that represents the actus reus. So a lot of time witnesses get coached and they come and lie and they do it on the oath. I mean, a simple lie, and it's not a white lie, this is a big, huge lie when, for instance, and I'm just picking on the politicians I know, them tell you, say you're being investigated for illicit enrichment, and you don't think that you must make it clear that you're investigated for that, and then you want to come anyway. So the actus reus is perjury. Then there is this situation of understanding that it does not matter that whether the lies believed or if it had any effect on the outcome of the case, the actus reus of the crime is complete upon the conduct. So the actus reus is the act. So if somebody dead, whether you stab or shoot or poison or do something, and a positive act is the conduct, is that conduct. Once you do it, it done. Examples of these of conduct crimes: perjury, theft, or larceny in Jamaican space, making off without payment, rape, possession of drugs or firearm. I make sure call them, because we know somebody I gotta say, me go over him live and the criminal boy, the all dirty drug smuggler convict boy, no talk about possession of drugs and importation and exportation. Because that's what they do. They don't do anything else because they pass they haven't gone into formal education. Or if they have some, they usually get it honorarily. Anyway, result. The actus reus may relate to the result of the act or act or omission of the defendant. So the conduct itself may not be criminal, but the result of the conduct may be, for example, it is not a crime to throw a stone, but if it hits a person or smashes a window, it could amount to a crime. So causation must be established in all result crimes. So when we think of result crime, like for instance, a motor vehicle is driving and it turns over and then people die, the result is what we look at, and somebody might be criminally liable. Hello? Yes, I'm doing my show. You think it's necessary to have a conversation now? I am on the show and I don't finish until 6 o'clock. So you can get it copied somewhere else. Thank you. Yeah. So example, it's not a crime to throw a stone, but if it hits a person then it's or smashes the window, it could amount to a crime. So what are examples of result crimes? Well, assault, battery, assault occasioning actual bodily harm, wounding and grievous bodily harm, murder and manslaughter, and criminal damage. So results crime are what usually is before the criminal court. I call them out, and so you pretty much I said, let us have a fun day, please. Don't know what happened. Oh my god. Anyway, so that's what you call. So you have the result crimes. No, the next thing that you have is what's called state of affairs. That's usually when the state is always in the business of making ordinary persons into criminals. Like for instance, they just get up and put out some enforcement order and say, disaster risk management. If you don't wear your mask at 5 o'clock, boom, radam, you're guilty of a crime. All right. So state of affairs is a state of affairs crime. It consists of being rather than doing. So you find yourself, we all right today, and them call a curfew. You don't know there's a curfew, you breach a curfew, and them say, big man, you breach a curfew because you come home late, and them just lock you up. And that state of being. So for instance, being drunk in the charge of a vehicle, you can imagine operating a vehicle and being drunk or sleeping in the vehicle, depending on what state you're in. And I'm not gonna bore you guys with the cases, but there are some cases, La Senior and Lim Chin Ik. So La Senior, she is a French woman. She get deported. She take a plane, go to Ireland, and they deport her to England and deport her back to France. And she entered the country illegally. She wasn't going there now. So imagine being a deportee. I know a guy who was deported. Imagine he goes on a plane and say he's going to Mexico, and the plane get into some mechanical problems and it lands in Florida. And they say, well, big man, you come in America and you were previously deported. This is illegal entry. And they just take you off the plane and then go lock you up. Stuff like that. Lim Chin Ik, otherwise, though, is one that says that you have to be put on notice and then they can't just treat it like strict liability. And yeah, that's pretty much how that works. So now you have an idea of the of conduct and state of being. The one that I want to talk about is the omission. So let me just put the context or lay the foundation for the omission aspect of it. Can you believe that one, I never told you guys of people just calling me, and I just called. They're not calling to tell me that they love me, but they're calling me. Anyway, yeah. Can you believe we are literally at the top of the hour? I never even I was so engaged in conversation with you guys that I never even took the time out to context matters. Yeah. Yeah. I never took the time to even.
It's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it straight. No time for living a lie. Gotta keep it moving till you get it right. That's right. It's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it straight. No time to be living a lie. You can make it if you try. No, I heard them say life much better you live it your own way. That's right. It's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it straight. No time for living a lie. Gotta keep it moving till you get it right. That's right. It's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it straight. No time to be living a lie. You can make it if you try. No, I heard them say life much better you live it your own way.
Yeah, getting back. Yeah, the next thing I want to talk about. So we have conduct, and conduct is usually related to causation. And then you have state of affairs or state of being. And I told you about that last senior and lynching egg. And this is important because sometimes people like say, but we never do nothing. Well, it's almost like not reading the sign of not no trespassing and you trespass, and then them say that's whatever. Anyway, the next thing is about omission, which is really what I want to talk about the high crime society. You see, um deciding what you have a duty to do is what is important, because all right, I'll start with what I think is like one of the most important legislation, the Child Care and Protection Act. If a child is being abused, then you have a statutory duty to report it to the police. If the police fail to act, they have breached the law, because they have a statutory duty as well as their duty as police officers to act. All citizens have duties to protect children, and I think that the justification of community policing is that to protect our kids, we have a duty to ensure that crimes are not committed because it can affect our children. And I think that's where I'm trying to go with it, because it cannot be that. Here's what I look at, and this is about speculation, and it's never ever good to speculate, but you have to at some point start to say, all right, it's very unusual for mass shootings to take place in Jamaica. When I look at I've seen the video now, you can't unsee the video. Similar to that in Clarendon is what happened in Rockford over the weekend, during Heroes Weekend, when we're supposed to have persons who are protecting people and doing something heroic. I don't think it was heroic to go and kill um, all those people, five or something like that, and injured so many after a football game. So one wonders now, if it is that you're getting yourself into problems and you're doing things you're not supposed to be doing. And I'm just saying these things because, to be honest with you, I simply don't know. So I can only, like I say, I can only speculate. So you have to bear with me where that is concerned. But if it is that you are literally finding yourself in problems, and when I say finding yourself in problems, meaning you either have um, got yourself into some trouble with some people, and having gotten yourself in trouble with the people are looking. Loxley, big up yourself. The people are looking for you to retaliate or whatever, because you probably did something or whatever, and you do what you do, and then you find yourself on a football field knowing that you've left person so angry at you that they're going to come and find you by any means necessary. And it's you, your family, and your friends for them to feel good. That's retributive justice, retribution, and vigilante justice, um, jungle justice. I don't even know if justice is a word that should be used when it comes to mass shooting and murder. Capital murder at that. Capital murder that warrants the death penalty, which Jamaica has been emasculated and is incapable of carrying out since 1988. But what is the thought process to put people in danger in that manner? And what has happened to you in your life that you would cause the people that you love and the people that love you to be put in danger by your conduct or your omission? And then what happens when you become a witness of such gruesome a gruesome act, and you're not cooperating with the police, or you're not being brave, and you have no duty to act, but what of a moral one? I'm trying to rationalize it in my mind. And have we been so disconnected, or are we feeling so bad about the JCF? Or and I've heard stories that persons want to cooperate, but the minute you tell somebody, you don't know who is who these days, and you don't know if somebody is attached to a gang. And they said there are how many millions, hundreds gang, but it's really one gang that say exists, and it has many fractions, and the other gang on the other side not doing anything because whatever. So it's a lot to digest. But let's talk about what we are supposed to do. So you ever see a situation where like a car accident happen and everybody pull over and take out them phone and them? I mean, the coverage is pristine. Almost like you work at CNN. And except for the part where them say, no one they dead, don't pick them up, don't touch him. That one they gone. See him head out, see him head upon the pavement. No, sir, she not move. Check if our phone at work. Take it up there. And the crimes that are committed in when fatal accidents happen, stuff like that. But the video footage that gets onto social media before families are notified, um, and how we feel as a society when these things happen. Well, that's the context of dealing with omissions. So, occasionally, and notice we say occasionally because there is a general rule, but occasionally an omission can amount to the actus reus of a crime. But here we start with the general rule, because the general rule regarding omissions is that there is no liability for a failure to act. In other words, you have no duty to act. You have no duty to call the police if you're passing a crime or a fatal accident and you see it happening. You can just mind your business. So if you see a child drowning in shallow waters and you don't do anything to save that child, you will not incur criminal liability for your inactions, no matter how easy it may have been for you to save the child's life. This is the general rule, but it is subject to exceptions. So we see we're talking about it. So you could be at a pool, the child jumps into the pool, and you say, look pan that. You say, oh, the mama careless and the papa careless, but them say me they on the gelding trucks at them for worry about that they picnic there. Or you say, yes, see there, as a woman, you know, long me want bless me womb with one picnic and do have one of them always say me I want him to say me walk in cemetery. See, they know she with her six left the picnic to go drown. Me not going on the water car. One, me not like bathe, and two, me nay learn to swim at YMCA. So me I go just watch the person dead. And then people hear you even saying that stuff and say, you're so heartless and you're so cold. But the law says you have no duty to act. Well, this is subject to exceptions because there may be a situation where you have a statutory duty, a contractual duty, or the duty imposed by law. Then there's also creating a dangerous situation and the voluntary assumption or close relationship. So for see Doreen Elliott, you see there, me can't swim, so that they pick me there with a drown. You get the point with that I was making. So with that being said, the statutory duty is in some situations there is a statutory duty to act. Example, to provide details of insurance after a traffic accident or to notify the driver's license authority when you sell a vehicle. So when also like if you work in government and you're an MP, you have a duty to declare that you buy the vehicle and you take the concession and give to your sister. And when you do it, it's not cutesy and it's not acceptable. And so you must resign because it's bad conduct, almost like thieving. So if a person owes a contractual duty to act, then a failure to meet this contractual duty, it may result in criminal liability. Now, what we mean by contractual duty? If you work down a Royalton and you have a contractual duty for make sure so the worker them get pay and the worker them for get feed and all of that, and you don't do it, you might get suspended when the Minister of Tourism come in after public pressure and them just radam suspend you because you think you did hype. And you never know, so you never hype. But anyway, so contractual duties, like if you sign a contract and you work, and even lawyers have a contractual duty, nurses have a contractual duty, or with government contract, whatever contract, and you're supposed to do it. So there's a case called Pitwood, and he's supposed to hold a railway door, but him dep on him phone, and one nice girl call him, and him leave the railway, him never close the thing, and then a cart was coming down, and the train hit it, and people dead. Kind of like the Kendall crash. Then yeah. Then there's an in duty imposed by law. So the actus reus can be committed by an omission where there exists a duty imposed by law. So there are three situations which a duty may be imposed by law. These are where the defendant creates a dangerous situation, where there has been a voluntary assumption of responsibility and a misconduct in a public office. So additionally, an omission may be classified as part of a continuing act. So I think that when the Prime Minister fails to say that he is being investigated or brings the office into disrepute, there's a duty imposed by law. And I think that because of that that's misconduct in public office. It could be considered that. But then there are many legal luminaries that will say, I don't know anything about the law. And I mean, because they've gone to the Privy Council, so they would know. Don't take me, don't quote me. So let's say creating a dangerous situation. There's a case called Miller. It's like the classic case for it. He was drunk and him going to a house and he was smoking and him fall asleep and the mattress, like the couch him was sleeping on and the blankets, and him gets up seat and him just say, ugh, walk to the other room and didn't out the fire, didn't call the fire brigade. Subsequently, the house started to engulf in flames and he got himself out, but the house burned down. He created a dangerous situation. He failed to out the fire when he started it, and so he was guilty because the law imposed a duty to act. Situations is like voluntary assumption. It's almost like you have an old relative and you decide, I'll take care of them, and you move them in your house so you can get them like a pension, and you want to get them land when them dead. So you want to be nice to them. So you bring them into the house, lock them up in the room, go all the post office and collect the pension and spend the money on Amazon, and then them eventually either dead or sitting around with them. Yeah, that is the voluntary assumption. Especially there's an idea of close relationship as well, because you have some woman, you see, them go take up man we have picnic, but them not like the picnic, but them like the man. Plus them have feed them own picnic, so them mistreat you. If you don't believe me, check the case of Cinderella. That the wicked stepmother did have two daughters where they ugly like me no know what. And Snow White, she got married Snow White daddy. Snow White daddy dead and left everything for Snow White in her, but the stepmother just take everything and lock her in the basement and then mistreat her. Well, if she did get anorexic and dead, the stepmother would have been in trouble because she voluntarily assumed, and plus she was a stepmother, so they had a close relationship. And many times in Jamaica, these things happen as well, where the stepmother allow or the mother allow the stepfather for beat, sometimes rape, sometimes molest the children, and she don't do nothing. Well, the law says you have a duty to protect them, and you're supposed to rightfully go in prison. That goes for grandparents, aunts, and uncles who allow conduct inside of the halls of the house that abuse and hurt children, and you allow it to happen, and you omit to tell the police. Yeah, that's the thing where the law imposes a duty. And the Child Care and Protection Act is similarly as important. All right. So I told you about Miller, told you about Stone and Dobson. I kind of pretty much told you about all of these cases already in relation to all of that. So there was a case though, RBI minor medical treatment. Um, the child required operation to save life, and the parents refusing consent, whether operation in child's best interest. And the authority says the best interest of the child that she should have an operation. Child could expect normal span of life of the Mongol child, and the child was allowed to live. So the parents could be in trouble if they fail to get the medical treatment. And then there's a case called Erndale Trust and Bland. And why is this one important? Well, this is a case where somebody's brain dead, there's a feeding tube, and the doctors decide they're going to remove the feeding tube. If you remove the feeding tube, you're omitting to feed the person and they're going to die, but the law allows for it because of the medical thing. The treatment could properly be withdrawn in such circumstances because the best interest of the patient did not involve him being kept alive at all costs. So in the case, feeding him was treatment, and the treatment would not cure him, and therefore was not in his best interest. It was lawful for the doctors to stop feeding the patient artificially. So sometimes you have family who want to stay alive, or when it just not gonna happen. Your brain dead, or you're a vegetable and you're not gonna come back, whatever it is. And then we could have conversations about when it is that a person is dead, legally dead, when the brain is detached from the spinal cord, and your brain dead, you're legally dead, even if your heart is breathing. So what it suggests that is the brain function that makes you a living person, even if you have trouble breathing. And naturally, when your heart stop, you conk out. So them say the heart what the heart what it wants, and sometimes the mind and the heart don't march along. I think that's what love is, when your heart control you and your brain fool. But yeah, either way, yeah, we get a sense of what was going on there. Um, Yeah, so I think in relation to omission, and I told you about the statutory duty. Police officers, you have a statutory duty to save people. So there's firemen and nurses and doctors and those who take the Hippocratic oath. I think when lawyers take cases, they have a statutory duty to ensure that they actually know what they're doing, and that they go all out to ensure that they're the best result for their client. It's in the canons as well, but these days seems like understanding is lacking um in terms of the client attorney relationship. But that being said, so I think I've dealt with omissions. And why did I talk about omissions? Because as I was saying, the law doesn't impose a duty on you to act, but if you're fighting crime, in your community, you're gonna have to act. You're gonna have to cooperate with the police, and you're gonna have to find officers that you can trust. Sometimes the officer won't even come from your community, and if you suspect that your safety is gonna be jeopardized by speaking to a police officer, then obviously don't. And I think that eventually, as we march along to eradicate poverty, and as we take steps, and when I'm saying we, I'm talking about the next government led by Mark Golding. I will take steps to ensure that the salaries of the officers and the teachers and the nurses, public sector workers that didn't get a chunk of the pie like the politicians, that they will have the respect for the job in such a way that one don't have to worry that they are a part of gangs and organizations because they are put in a position to have to survive because the salaries are not being met or is not commensurate to the work being done, and they're nowhere closer to that $600,000 that I told you about for you to be a human being on the world index. Notwithstanding that, we're moving on to causation, and causation is a sexy topic. I would say there are two types of causation: factual and legal. So, causation refers to the inquiry as to whether the defendant's conduct or omission caused the harm or damage. So, causation must be established in all result crimes. So, causation in criminal liability is divided into factual causation and legal causation. Um, yeah. So, the factual and legal causation, right? So, when it comes to factual causation, it is always a starting point, and it consists of what is known for the but for test. So, in most instances where there exists no complicating factors, factual causation on its own will suffice to establish causation. However, in some circumstances, it will also be necessary to consider legal causation. On a legal causation, um, I said you can't find a police right now to trust. All of them want money. I do agree with you. There's enough police I know, and them no want no money. Them want them money from the government. Them want better salary, but them not gonna sell out for a little $5,000. All right, so the act of the defendant was the only cause. There must be something called no novus actus intervenus, no intervening act, and the defendant must take his or her victim as he finds him. So that's what you call the eggshell rule or the thing skull rule. So let's talk about the factual causation. And listen, this is for educational purposes. The but for test now, so factual causation established by the but for test. It asks the question: but for the actions of the defendant, would the result have occurred? If yes, the result would have occurred in any event. The defendant is not liable. So if the answer is no, the defendant is liable, as it can be said that their actions was a factual cause of the effect. Right? So you think of an event, would it have occurred but for your actions? That's really what you look at. So ISAT exists in the world. Factual causation says, but for my father impregnating my mother, I wouldn't born. So that's a given. So the but for test can be applied to anything. Because I think if my grandfather on my mother's side never do a good job, I breed my grandmother, then my mother wouldn't born, and then my father wouldn't meet her and then breed her. And then when she get breed, like them say, then I wouldn't born. So the but for is a simple thing. But let's think about things that, so it's a chain reaction effect. So I think that in some instances the but for test is a given, but there can be situations where legally there has to be a proximate cause, because but for is in all things it can work. It's just that sometimes the lines are so blurred. So Aaron White is a case where the defendant tried to poison his mother with the intention of killing her. The mother took a few sips and went to sleep and never woke up. The medical report revealed that she had died from a heart attack and not the poison. And the defendant was not liable for her murder, as his act of poisoning the milk was not the cause of death. He was liable for attempt, however. And so the case established the but-for test. So that was the white case. Can't say me never did tell you. But legal causation is a little bit more technical because it requires that the harm must result from a culpable act. Is there anybody want to ask me a question? Because I'm kind of feeling like people want to ask me a question. Bless up yourself, Maxine Campbell. I see you. Nope. Okay, good. We can continue. So the legal causation that requires that the harm must that the harm must result from a culpable act. So the act must be it's like a act that you're going to be culpable or liable for. And the defendant's actions need not be the sole cause of the resulting harm, but it must be more than minimal. There must be no actus intervenus, that's no intervening act, because an intervening act will break the chain of causation. So intervening mean, can you imagine you went, you was driving, you hit somebody down and you're trying to take them to the hospital, but while they're going to the hospital, another vehicle come and hit the car, the person drops out of the car, and then another person come and run over them. That would be like an intervening act. But not if it is the ambulance that's carrying you, and as a result of a crash, the person die. They could still say, but for you causing the person to get an injury, they wouldn't have to be in the yeah. So they wouldn't have they wouldn't be saying that it's your fault. They would have to say it's your fault if it's the medical people trying to, right, if it's an ambulance trying to save lives, then case law pretty much says that you are still the person cause of the harm if the person is not out of harm's way. So the thin skull rule is, or the eggshell rule is what you know as take a victim as you find them. So in law, you can't say you're going to frighten people on Halloween and use a toy gun for rob them, because you may pull out a toy gun and them so frightened them get a heart attack. If the person dies and you did that, then you may very well be held liable for the murder, even though you never touched them. All you did was point the gun at them. So that's really how those things work. Now, legal causation requires that the harm must result from a culpable act. So the case law is pretty saying the same thing, that if you're driving or you're doing whatever and you was reckless with the car and the person run out of the way and you never hit them, but when them run out of the way, them run into another car, you may probably be the causation because you need not touch the victim. Um, that is just pretty much it is the case law that kind of guides you as to how to identify these things. Now, the offense could not be committed without proof of fault in causing the death. His failure to have a license and insurance was a fault, but it wasn't that this fault that caused the death. So you can be driving without a license and the car not insured, but it might not be the cause of the death. Alternatively, his driving, although a cause of death, was minimal in relation to the victim's own actions in causing the death. So there are some times that you might have a daft victim. Let's say, for instance, I'm driving to UE, and then whilst I'm doing that, I pick up a hitchhiker. The person is in the back seat, and I'm driving, and the person just say, "Oh, it looked like he might got kidnapped me and raped me," and just jump out of the vehicle. Don't communicate none of that to me. And when them jump out of the vehicle, a JUTC bus just come and just crush them head. Of course, they're going to try to prosecute because I'm the person who was driving the vehicle. But at the end of the day, they would be unsuccessful because there's no nexus between the conduct of a daft victim and myself, who was operating the motor vehicle. And we never had a conversation that would seem to suggest that I was going to rape. There are instances, however, where you actually was going to commit a conduct like rape, and you drive on a lonely road and the girl gets scared and she jumps out the moving vehicle. You would have to be responsible for that. Okay? And so that's pretty what it is. And I said a novus actus intervenus is an intervening act which will break the chain of causation, and many different tests apply, like act of a third party that can break it. The act of the victim, as I said, that the victim can be a daft victim. Um, yeah. Then Cheshire, you have cases like medical cases, Cheshire, Smith, and Jordan. No, why are we talking about this? Well, imagine you shoot somebody and they go to the hospital and you're being charged for grievous bodily harm, but the person not dead yet. In Jamaica, a person, for you to be charged of murder, the person have to die before a year and a day. So after a year and a day, you're not responsible for the death through your conduct. So can you imagine you stab somebody and they have you locked up for the stabbing, and then that person goes into the hospital and then they're trying to save them life, give them the wrong medication, and the person die. Once the person die within a year and before the year and a day passes, you can be charged for the murder, and you'd be at the mercy of the prosecution to say that your conduct had rise to that level. And they usually say that it does, because they're trying to get their murder convictions up. The things called rule is you take your victim as you find them. So you can imagine now y'all find somebody and you rob them and you stab them and take them iPhone. And when you stab them they ID you, but they reach to the hospital and the doctor say, you stab a Rasta and the doctor say, yo, a beer pork blood we gonna give, and him say, fire! No pork blood, me rather dead. Same thing holds true for the Jehovah Witness. They refuse the medical treatment, and at the end of the day, they die. You'll be responsible for the death, because the law is saying that you take your victim as you find him or find her. Good. And in a nutshell, that is what causation is. And as I said, the case law is what really guides the discussion on causation. But there have been situations also where, in terms of the thing, the eggshell rule is that sometimes your conduct can be you can get in trouble for the conduct of a victim who you harm. For instance, there was a case, I think it was Aaron Deere. Don't ask me how I remember these things, but in that case, a man had raped a man's daughter, and what the man did was to stab up the man. And the man goes into the hospital and they saved his life. Well, he was, while in the hospital, get up and realize that the man cut up him face and stab him up, and him just pop out all of the stitches and bleed to death. And the father was charged for the murder of the man who pop up the stitches and bleed to death, because they're saying that the victim is under no duty to take care of themselves when you are the person responsible for the harm. So you can imagine a man who throw acid on a woman for burn her up, and she get up and see her face burn up and she kill herself. That suicide falls on you, and you can be charged for the murder. And that's just how the law is. Somebody said lawmakers are no lawbreakers. Well, all they can do is change it when they break it, and then all is well in la la land. So that is pretty much in a nutshell how we think of it. Now there is a public policy that speaks to when you're getting medical treatment after being harmed. So somebody shoot you in the stomach and you get, they save you, take out the bullet, stitch you up, but then you get bad medication and them have to put you back in surgery and you die. If you die, it is the responsibility of the accused man or woman. Similarly, there is a one case in law where an intervening act by medical staff broke the chain of causation, and that's because it was the son of a judge or a relative of a judge. Aaron Jordan, similar to Aaron Smith, he was a soldier, and um, somebody was stabbed, and when they got the medical treatment, they were almost completely healed, but they went into complications and eventually died, and the court ruled that the medical treatment was palpably wrong. And because it was palpably wrong, that's a standard to say that an intervening act can break the chain of causation. So now that we know all of these things, we're saying now a man who goes out and decides that I'm going to shoot and kill 5 people or more with his friends have decided that they are, the result that comes from it is capital murder, because 2 or more persons killing them at the same time is capital murder, or killing a politician is capital it warrants capital murder, or a charge for murder, and if proven, life, or in the alternative, um, death. But as I've told you how I felt about, well, not how I felt, but the reality of death penalty in the Jamaican space already. So that's not something that we need to traverse any further. No, yeah. What next that we look what next that we look at now in that context is that when these things happen and the citizen says nothing, the police is have no leads, and the result of that is these crimes go, the investigation goes dead and nobody's charged for it, and then it just goes on the murder books and goes on the murder toll, and we have to sit and wonder, but how do we fight crime if people just are dead and nobody now do nothing? Well, there's simple responses to that, because if we are accepting that Jamaica is a high crime society, and if our prime minister is saying that the bad man, they must turn themselves in, or prepare for dead, it seems to me that the citizens themselves need an ability to protect themselves, and maybe we should rethink how persons access firearm, um, need to access the firearms, similar to that of America and the Second Amendment right. So maybe it should be a constitutional right, since they're in the business of thinking about constitutional amendment, to bear arms to ward off the type of gun violence and gun attacks that's taking place. Similarly, I just think that when it goes without saying that when it is that the government would have amended legislation from the Bail Act amendment, firearms legislation, to make mandatory minimums. And I think I'm in a space where they I would say respectfully that even that legislation needs to be challenged at the constitutional level, because mandatory minimums, especially for having possession of a toy gun or even possession of a firearm, is nonsensical. When we're going to Barbados, who also suffer from mass shootings and gun violence all across the Caribbean, and to see that our brothers and sisters and our cousins in these islands don't face the same years for possession and for gun crimes, one wonders if we are taking a proper approach when it comes to fighting crime. I haven't seen yet. There's a state minister. I do not know the level of education that she has, or whether she values education to the point that it would require incentives, or legislation that would reward inmates for getting CXCs in terms of a one CXC maybe resulting in a 6 months reduction in prison. So when somebody has five of them, 6, 5, 30, that's a 3 year reduction of a otherwise lengthy prison sentence. Enrollment in college, associate's degree and degree would further allow somebody to reduce the time that they spend in prison, because persons aren't supposed to just be languishing in prison. And so what part of crime fighting is rehabilitation, restorative justice, reintegration, and a refashioning and a rethinking of persons exposed to criminality. Because we don't have a category, a prison classification. So if you happen to jump the fence and pick some Akis off the governor general's tree, you're faced with prison time, and while you're in prison, you are kept in cells with with murderers, convicted murderers, and persons with a criminal mind and criminal intent, and it changes the fabric of who you are. And before you know it, because the reality is that when you come out of prison, you're not going to be it's not going to be easy to get jobs. It's not going to be easy for you to get employment, especially with a history of criminality. You would have seen how the Jamaica Labour Party responded to um, my entry into political representation by ignoring the fact that they have persons on their sides who have previously been convicted, and they're mayors and they're all kind of things, and they keep their convictions on the silence, which I think you have a duty to disclose and the public should have a right to know. But also how they respond to it, notwithstanding that many of our national heroes also have criminal records, and whether or not they believe in rehabilitation. And we know the answer to that is no. And we also know that to not reward persons for self rehabilitation in a society that don't provide any is of utmost importance. So we have to think about how we go about messaging so that young people can find spaces where they can thrive and become the best versions of themselves. So these are just anecdotes to what is a serious crime problem and what is the way forward when we're thinking about it. Because I'm telling you, there are many distractions going on, but every time that I stop and think about how people lose their lives, and also I find it to be very, very, very offensive that persons in high places commit corruptions, but persons in not so high places are charged for scamming. A scammer is a scammer at every level. A thief is a thief at every level. No matter if you call it larceny, fraud, shoplifting, scamming, whatever it is. The dishonesty when it comes to um, political finances and stuff like that. And those who have access to the country's resources, it is the biggest crime that could be committed against an entire nation. And so because we're thinking about crime classification, you must be able to educate the public about violent crime and non-violent crime, and then crimes that leads to violence. This is so important because when we think about in government, there are persons who are either had government jobs but were removed, persons who would have been productive members of society, and they were removed from office because of the fact of a conviction. um, there's no respect for the legislation that allows for expungements, pardons, and all the niceties that comes like in the United States. And so, as we look to November 4th to see how the United States respond to a prosecutor versus a criminal, um, how they respond to white people with criminal records versus black people, how they respond to representational politics in terms of the best interest of the nation by representation, constitutional right to choose your representative, to participate in the political selection process, and as well as the political affairs of a nation. All of these things are of utmost importance because they're interconnected to crime. And then when we talk about how they group ministries and who is responsible for what, it, educating the public for them to understand the inconnectivity or the connectivity between ministries for there to be, for people to be able to fight crime, especially when economic growth and economic development that is not macro but micro. So in the pockets where in different constituencies, in different divisions, and in different regions, persons are able to know what it is that is required for there to be success and improvement of an economic growth for the common man, and common man being the ordinary citizens who simply otherwise would not have access to resources that our elite counterparts have by virtue of just existing. Some of them not even citizens of this country, but are operating by virtue of how the law sets up, and artificial companies with TRNs and the ability to get a TRN to operate business as well for anybody. And whether it affects or takes away or is disadvantageous to the ordinary citizen. All of these are considerations to fight crime. So in dealing with the considerations that I'm talking about, community protection, defending your community. I saw a comment from a political commentator, and he says we should have pothole Thursdays. Now, I must tell you that I'm walking in a constituency where it is known that they wrote the carpet, they put down carpet, but the suggestion from members of the Labour Party is that apparently there's some big hole in the Fitz-Jackson's community or constituency, a pothole, and them say it's theme hole. So me now in the Portland Eastern, in several communities, when faced with traversing the roads, and it says you must name the politician every Thursday and show and make the public know about the holes that they're not attending to. So I'm going to make it my mission as of today, as I traverse the constituencies, because I'm proud to say that when I everywhere I go in Portland Eastern, after I pass there and I walk the constituency and I meet the people and I head in that direction, it follows that their roads are fixed, which is supposed to happen. So I'm proud to say that when I identify that there's a problem with Boston Jerk, it's open for business. People are happy, people are ecstatic. That's how it's supposed to work. We're going to deal with the Blue Lagoon, Titchfield and Happy Grove with your classrooms and the inability to go to school every day. I understand that it's certainly in Titchfield, that situation is now fixed. So the school them must fix. So anywhere I lay my eyes and I speak about, as long as the government is going to correct it, that's how it's supposed to go, because you're supposed to do it. And do it before me, because if you don't do it, I'm going to talk about it. And when you do it, because I'm talking about it, it's because I bring it to your attention. And that's how it's supposed to go. We are doers. We're not talky and flanky. So anyway, I will be showing you all the holes that need fixing and who they belong to, certainly in the constituency that I represent. And that was a suggestion from members of the Labour Party to name the holes, and we will be naming them. Not on a first name basis, but who it is who is responsible, the MP that's responsible for the whole. At what one time there was a former a former opposition member who has two children now in the ruling party, and he was very disrespectful by naming the holes Portia holes. Well, it's time to name the holes, whoever hole it belonged to, all across Jamaica, and we should ensure that people have roads without having to beg for roads. And that is the level of petty that we need to rise up against, to trick people, misrepresent and deceive people to thinking that roads and development that was always in the pipeline from before many of us were born. This country was, and there was a vision for this country and its connectivity, and it's going to be done regardless of who is in power, and it must never be done at the expense of eradicating what used to be a thriving middle class is now the rich, and a whole bunch of us suffering and trying to make ends meet. And this thing about no new taxes, not something to be proud of when the dollar is right there at 160, hovering at 160, and millions of Jamaican dollars has been millions of Jamaican dollars, meaning money belonging to Jamaican people in no matter what currency is being pumped into tricking the people that the dollar is so stabilized. And in other news, Guyana, their leaders are offering 100,000 Guyanese dollar from the new wealth of finding oil to every citizen over 18. And Christmas not reach yet, them I get them yama. What are we getting? $20,000 for the people who make less than $3 million. I bet you go beg money. If you beg, you get the money, and then them not collect no tax for you. So I'm advocating, for a tax-free nation where people don't pay taxes, but the money is pumped back into the country, and you collect taxes from GCT and everything else, where you can collect it from everybody. And then we will see how it work. Somebody says size 13 hole is there for sure. I don't even know like how that drop in right there. So, because it's a hole, it drop in. Yeah, I get it now. Anyway, I think that I would have addressed the whole thing about causation, conduct crime versus result crime, state of being, and omission. All of these are a part of the physical aspects of criminal law. I will do mens rea, which is a mental aspect of it, as well as speak about strict liability. Because when it comes to the traffic tickets and a decision from the court, it says that to get back your money, you're going to have the receipt. But I tell you, from time immemorial, after the government choppy line and take money from people that they ought not to have taken because of the legislation, it is very disheartening. So we'll talk about strict liability one day. We'll talk about mens rea, so people can have a wholesome idea of how the criminal law works and the criminal justice system. And especially when we're talking about conduct crime, the whole idea about lying on the perjury and this thing to save yourself, you start to you lie and you come and you testify and you get coach, and you just sound like a big thief and a big wicked on the stand when you're giving your testimony well rehearsed. These things have to stop. These things have to stop, because one would have thought that we had gone to a place where we understood that fair trial right that's coming out of the Privy Council. Fair trial right is for everybody. And so if you don't have the capacity to bring a trial that is fair, that doesn't include tampering of evidence, coaching of witnesses, or anything like that, just to send somebody to prison, knowing that you otherwise didn't have capacity to do it, we're never going to build and increase the capacity, and we're never going to be able to reach to the Singapore model, where integrity governs the conduct of all parties and stakeholders. I was in family court this week, and I almost fell off my chair. I hear a woman say that her husband, who she's going to divorce, is unbecoming of her husband because he cheated on her. I know this unbecoming is the moral standard for persons in professions. I didn't know being a husband was a profession, and I didn't know that getting born was something not a part of what they call infidelity. But to say unbecoming of a husband because you get born is a new phenomenon, and I just think that we like to talk about moral standards that is not realistic, and the moral fabric of society is being crushed because we put hypocritical expectations on people. Like imagine working somewhere and they say that, hey, we don't think that the sector that you work in can charge certain money, so it has to be reduced. And then them turn around and say, but we are increase the fees because um we have to pay the new staff. Kind of like how fuel and IPP charges just randomly make the bill high even when things are good in when it comes to energy and fuel. So anyway, I think I would have traversed that enough to have persons to try to you know assess the situation and to think legally and critically rather than emotionally. I think an emotional response is telling somebody that if the law don't get you, meet the judge or meet the maker, is a very unfortunate statement, and it empowers the young men and women of the JCF to think that extrajudicial killing is something that is justifiable. And if Indicom decides to properly investigate and come to the conclusion and recommends prosecution, the very people who tell you that you must murder people and don't bring them in is gonna say that you are a disgrace to the very Jamaica Constabulary Force to whom you where you work, and you should be removed and placed on interdiction where necessary. So I just tell you that for me, yeah, I saw that comment. Yeah, so I really believe that these are things that we have to traverse. These are realities that we have to deal with, and in a in a society where we really have to rethink and refocus. For instance, any government in power is supposed to tell the people that crime is bad. Any government in power is should have the go ahead to say that, listen, if the people don't want better for themselves, better won't come, because the JCF is there to investigate. They're just there to investigate, and if they have the information, they will prosecute. There should be no um extraordinary expectations for them to bring crime to a close, because the crime is committed whether or not the JCF solve it. The murder is a wicked act committed by people who lack empathy and don't value human life. That is something separate and apart from government and the society in general. These are individuals who are disconnected and broken souls, mentally ill people. And if I will say that I would never dare want to drink the water that they drink, which is why I drink my pure water every week. Mhm. So, for those of you on Reggae Global Radio, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. You're always an amazing audience. I like the fact that you guys message me and give me your commentary after the show, even when there are times when I don't open the line. But I think this was a lesson that I had to put out, and for those who I really appreciate the number of persons who come each week to have these conversations and lessons, and know that it is a movement where we are educating um, Jamaicans who otherwise do not have access to tertiary education, do not have access to formal education because our education system is failing. It is failing miserably because the wrong persons are put in charge of ministries, and there's no intervention that is taking place that will ensure that our children get the type of education they need to emancipate themselves from from poverty. I'm not even going to say mental slavery because they are aware that when they go on TikTok and they see the young people in other countries living their best life and having access to freedom of expression and the ability to be themselves, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to be living in a board house and there's no tile and no running water, and you have to be competing with that in 2024. These are things that's gonna have to change. Young people want to go out into the world, and the most I can tell you is Portland Easter will be the model for young people going out in the world and doing for country, a connection to the diaspora like they've never seen. And the work and travel that we're talking about is not just farm work, but is the ability to be free citizens moving around and making connections all over the world to make sure that Jamaica continues to be on the map by the likes of the very person they're talking about. They want to make national icon rather than national hero. Miss me with that. Big up Rihanna and big up Mia Motley out of Barbados who took the right step when it comes to contribution and nation building through entertainment, which is a sector that must be protected and be introduced into constituencies and spaces. But another forum for that. Thank you guys for joining, and I will see you guys next week on Context Matters. I'll announce my guest way before time, and apologies for not advertising, but you guys still showed up. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be here with me. Big up on yourself. Blessings. And for those who still on TikTok, I'm gonna get money gone, money gone. Lexi, are you that? I know that are you. That is that. Um, yeah. So, so I just realized I was 8 minutes out. So you guys gonna have to stay with me for 8 more minutes on YouTube. At least 8 more minutes. Yeah, but I think that Jamaica in a better position than Barbados. Expound on that. Expound on Mr. Isaac, sir. You have created history in Jamaica again for doing what you did after went through what you went through and make it to be a productive member of society. Blessings. I said, why the water bill never had how much water you use on your water bill? I don't even know how to read the water bill. I just pay whatever them tell me to pay because I just in my mind just feel say these bills are just here to just take money out of your pocket. Or when you not use it. You'll have internet and internet don't work for 7 months and them still send you the same bill for the service. And no technology in place for them to tell you that we've noticed that your internet isn't working. But to ask if them not ask. Yeah, I'm stuffy. So let me tell you about Portland. It rain. It's sunny, then it rain. It's sunny, then it rain. You can never short of water in a Portland. You can bathe with the rainwater and it come down 3-4 times a day. So you can plan your showers around the rain. So yeah, that's why I'm stuffy. Yeah, the TikTok is still going. Them now send me no gifts, but the TikTok going. Only Lexia send me gifts. I see Keisha though. Keisha advocate for my 50K. I'm all shook up. Oh, baby. Yeah. Yeah, so it's true, water. Try and get used to it. Yeah, man, get in there, get in there. Let me tell you something. There's a song called These Boots Were Made for Walking. That's just what they do. Well, one of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. You better know for walk. That's all I can tell you. Because walking, five divisions and walking, walking, walking. Yeah, I had a very interesting week though, because seeing the Maroons unite was very powerful. Seeing Black excellence, very powerful. Um, Seeing the pride of the people is a powerful experience, and I can tell you that. Yeah, I have to introduce Jamaica to Jamaicans to Jamaica. That is something that we definitely have to do. I feel that strongly, and yeah, I said that without apology. Introducing Jamaica to Jamaicans is the order of the day. It's something that is something new and has to be done. That's my take. What say you? Um, See what it does to Africa. What Philip Sutherland? What does what do to Africa? Why is the international human rights brought in some of the cases that brought death? International human rights is brought in because of the international standards. There are a lot of treaties that Jamaica signed. Some of them ratified, many of them aren't. So those are things that you have to ask the lawmakers about in terms of why it is that they sign on to international treaties, but they don't ratify them. And usually they don't ratify them because they don't want Jamaicans to get the benefit of them. Also, sometimes they're tied and tack on to some things that is against our morality, and the decision not to sign, and sanctions come from it. Is many things. So it's very technical. Hoping that answer your question. No nuclear power plant around here, or when you're talking about alternative means of power. I mean, there is solar energy, and people should take steps to converting their homes to use of solar. But then I don't even know how long we're gonna have an environment where the sun comes out sufficiently, given the damage that global warming is doing to this region. So some of these things are not to be taken lightly. That's my thought, at least. Yeah. Oh, Al Ministries, big up yourself. Yep. So that's that. But I wanted to show yes. Yeah, my manners. So I got this really cool gadget that I wanted to show people. So I'm gonna do it now. So this was given to me by as you can see it, monetizable backpack. It's from Limelight Wear the Spotlight. You see it? So this now is a backpack. And listen, packaging is everything. It came in this tie bag, and in it is a bag, and this is the bag. This is the bag. So my I don't want to say foot soldiers, because that's not the wrong thing, but you have to walk in the community. And so because you have to walk in the community, you go with the people who are there with you in the community. And they'll have this on their back. Oh, what did I just do? Come on, come on, come on, come on. And I had this, I had it, I have to find the remote. Yeah, hold on. Me nah hang up to me nah sign off till me get this right, Yeah, so the bag. Yep. I tell you. Anyway, you learn as you go. I soon figure it out. It's technology and I'm not the best at it. But anyway, let me see if it's gonna work. Low nerves. Yeah, anyway. So like I was saying, move it, move it, move it, enter. You must be laughing at me right now. So anyway, me now come off of YouTube today till I see it. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's me. It is me doing something. Clearly. Oh yeah, now I remember what I do. Movie. So anyway, the bag shows the content on here, and then yeah, I'm showing you. And the person walks around with it. Oh yeah, so see Grace say I saw you on the front. Them things are bigger than me, but we get it. Yeah, so um anyway, I saw myself on it and it was cool the whole time. So soon as I get somebody technologically efficient, right? See, I was there. Right, right, aha. See? I don't know how to find it. Yeah, 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 yeah. See? Right. So you walk around and you put the content, you put it anyway. In a nutshell, you put the content in there, and so big up to Limelight Spotlight wear because I have them for the persons who's walking in the community. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could do this all day, but I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Anyway, when I get it, when I get it. So yeah, show big up yourself for that, and yeah. So wait till y'all see the technology that comes with the campaign shirts, because we're in 2024. You can't just be. You have to be. Um, yeah, yeah, Keisha, that was the demo. They brought it to me. So you don't have to tell me which song that I need to. You don't tell me which song I need to use. Okay? Big up yourself. Anyway, yeah, and the technology that comes with it. But that was the demo, and that's how it was presented to me. So big up yourself for the contribution to the campaign. And there will all be people, there will always be critics, and we do appreciate that. But yeah, just sharing that with you, the innovation from young people and the technology, as well as that's what we're looking for with young people with a vision who can bring something dynamic, and finding ways to bring out messages across, especially at a time um, when social media is unkind, and the judgmentalists come out and they always have something negative to say. It's important that you have your platform to bring across your messaging so that the people will have an idea of what it is that it takes to improve lives, not just your own, but for years to come. And that's really what we're looking for. So anyway, I just want to say seriously, big up yourself for always tuning in, and I will see you guys next week. All right. Blessings.